Hi there guys, we're coming up to the sort of latter part of the Star Wars Jakku Desert TIE Fighter vignette here, which, oops, I'll just pop this aside so you can see how that's coming along very nicely. And I've put some sort of thin wooden from the back of a photo frame edging around here because I wasn't happy with the paper edging around there, and that's looking quite nice, as you can see, with a bit of sand build up, and that's all now set with the scenic glue and what have you, so it's nice and firm. And we're coming up to the final part of it, which is going to be the smoke plume that will be coming out of the roof of the downed TIE Fighter on the desert floor. And to create this, what I have done is used a roll type cotton wool, which I'll actually fetch that in a moment and show you what I mean to make that clearer. I've used 3 sprues which I've glued together at one end and then splayed them out to create the sort of cone pattern, and I've then laid out this roll of cotton wool and covered one side as evenly as possible with white glue, PVA glue, and then rolled it around the sprues and shaped it sort of roughly. Once that's actually dried a little, I've then taken a pair of tweezers and teased, and I'll probably do a little bit more as well, and I've just sort of teased lumps up and out of the this cotton wool funnel, just to try and give it a more sort of uneven, natural, lumpy, billowing appearance like you would get with smoke. So I'm showing this particular bit because somebody on a group was asking how they could go about creating a smoke trail from a rally car, and I'd mentioned that I was actually in the process of doing this, and the process of creating a smoke trail would be very, very similar. It just that you would actually create it flat, tease it up into a billowing smoke trail, and then paint it in the appropriate sort of sandy earth or what have you, whatever it happens to be, colours. So as I say, it's just kind of teased into shape and twiddled about a little, and I need a better clamp to hold that, but you can see how that's going there. So once that's been teased into shape a little, what I then did is I sprayed it with hairspray, just regular hairspray like you would use for chipping if you were doing a sort of chipping kind of thing like you would do on armour. And that helps hold it in place. The next step is going to be spraying it with some colours, and I'm going to start with a light grey and just build that up gradually, and overall I want this to be quite dark, because if you recall the scene where Poe and Finn crash into the Jakku Desert and the TIE Fighter's in the sand, the smoke that's billowing out of it is actually quite dark and black and sooty. So I'm going to build this up to quite a darkish overall smoke plume, and that is how we're creating that. I'll show you that in a moment once we've started to get some paint on, but that's where we're at the minute. The cotton wool type I'm referring to, you can buy cotton wool in balls and what have you, which you could use, but it would require you sticking individual ones and sort of teasing it about and what have you. The type I'm using, this is Morrison's, which is a UK supermarket. It doesn't have to be that brand, you can get these from chemist shops or supermarkets or what have you, but it will come in a bag like this and it will just look like a big wad of cotton wool. But if you take it out of the bag and lay it down on your surface, you'll see that what you can actually do is unroll it like a mat. And what this allows you to do is cut yourself a piece however large or whatever size you need, and then you can lay glue down on one side and stick it to a surface, and then on the other side what you can do, as you can see there, it's currently sort of very flat and fairly even looking. Then what you can do is take your tweezers or what have you or some needle nose pliers and just kind of pull it and tease it around a little bit until it's the kind of shape that you want. The ball type cotton wool certainly would work. There's no reason whatsoever why it wouldn't, but it would be much more time consuming and tedious, I think, because you would have to individually glue balls of cotton wool and wait for them to stick and then tease them into shape, and you probably have to do some infilling. So that's the type I mean when I refer to the sheet or the roll type cotton wool. And as I say, that's available commonly and cheaply from supermarkets or pharmacists, chemist shops. We're back in here with the now completed billowing smoke cloud that's going to be coming up out of the top of the TIE Fighter. I'm just going to go over what we've done with this before we assemble it with the remainder of the vignette. It's a little bit of a tricky one, actually. It's not quite a diorama, but it's a little bit more than a vignette because it's not just drawing your focus to one specific part of it, because there's wreckage behind it. But I think I'll call it a vignette anyway. But yeah, the smoke cloud, as I say, it's a dark smoke cloud. So what I did, as with the previous bit, is I wrapped the cotton wool around the sprue sticks, which I formed. You could also use wire or something similar. It doesn't have to be bits of sprue. That's just what I had to hand. That was stuck on with PVA glue and left to dry overnight. I think I actually left it a couple of days just to be sure. And then I sort of teased it out into a billowing cloud shape. And what I did at that point is I got some Tamiya acrylic dark sea grey and NATO black, and working starting with the sea grey, I just started misting very light coats all over, and gradually I added drops of NATO black and tried to kind of patch it on here and there until I was right up to just plain neat NATO black. And I didn't want to go with full black paint. I wanted it, I didn't want any sort of full black areas on it, so I just stuck with the NATO black, and then I just sort of dusted, tried to dust the high spots where the black clouds would be billowing out. And that's the end result. What I then did is I took that, after I'd left it to dry for half an hour or so, I took that and gave it a good blast of hairspray to help to set it. And it's hard to tell. I mean, you can still sort of move it, but it's got that kind of hairspray feel when you were a kid and your mum used to use loads of hairspray back in the day when it was popular, and you used to sort of prod the hair, and it just kind of, and it felt really stiff and just stood there. It's got that kind of hairspray feel to it, but hopefully that should help keep it in shape. Another point, when I airbrush this, I turned the airbrush pressure right down to about 10 psi and used very, very thinned, very heavily thinned paint. So what I did, although I don't normally, I actually mixed in the airbrush cup. I just put in a dropper full of thinners and then just enough paint that it would actually start to stick to the sides if you actually sort of swipe it up the sides of the cup. Because obviously too high a pressure, it will actually deform the cotton wool as you're trying to spray onto it. So and then I sprayed it from probably about this kind of distance, a bit further than I normally would for spraying an item. And all in all, I'm actually quite pleased with that. So what I'm going to do now is go right ahead and fix it to the TIE Fighter, and then we'll have a look at the completed diorama. Here is the final result, the end result. I'm just going to actually move the light forward a little bit and let's zoom in slightly so you're seeing the whole model kit. I think I might actually put a lick of paint on the surround. Let me get that in focus, there we go. I think I might put a lick of paint on the surround, and looking at this where it's actually sat inside the cabin, I think I need to add a little bit more black on this, and I might actually just put a bit of black on the windows as well, because that's actually more visible through the window glass at the front, the canopy glass, than I thought. But all in all, I'm really pleased with how this looks. I'm just going to kind of rotate it around so you can get a view from all kind of angles. And I've got that tilted back at the moment, but it's going to be left, it's not going to be sort of glued in place, it's just going to be left like that, which means it can be adjusted to suit. But I'm really pleased with how this has come out. It's not perfect, I think I can improve on that, but it's been a real kind of learning experience. This is entirely new for me. The only time I've done anything like this with the cotton wool to get this kind of boom effect was with the Meng Toons Tiger in my previous build, where it was firing the high explosive shell, the Kelly's Heroes one. And that was the first time I actually did anything with the cotton wool. So bearing that in mind, I'm actually really pleased with how that whole thing looks. So yeah, so there we go. I'm going to try and sit it on the turntable. I don't know how well it will perform on the turntable, because it's a bit bigger than the usual model that I sit on there. But hopefully I'll get a couple of rotations of it on the turntable for you to look at, with a nice little bit of music. And that is now the build complete. This is what I'd hoped to get done in time for Christmas. So this is going to be a belated Christmas present for a friend who's a mad sci-fi nut. And there we are, all done. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm meanwhile enjoying a cup of coffee, a long black made with the gadget that's in the video previous to this one, which is my new portable espresso. So if you like gadgets, go and have a look at that. It's a great little coffee maker. And I'm going to wrap this up, get this video edited and get it uploaded. Thank you for watching, and join us for the next one.